couple Tunnies.
Tunnies.
Welcome
back to the Carpal Tunnel Diaries.
With your hosts, I am DJ.
And Bianca.
Today we're going to talk about getting carpal tunneled, also known as getting ghosted. So we thought we'd talk about this since our podcast name kind of revolves around this topic. As you guys have probably heard if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, we got our name from an instance where our co-host, Bianca, may or may not have been ghosted.
I was definitely ghosted.
Well, who knows? Depends on our definition, which we'll talk about on this episode.
As our fans know, I was carpal tunneled, but whatever. So what is ghosting?
That's a very good question. And Bianca and I actually talked about this, and our definitions are slightly different. But we did come up with our main definition being ghosting must be when you're expecting a reply or expecting some sort of text message or some sort of message from the other party. And if there is no contact from either party, you can say you've been ghosted.
I disagree. I think that if there is no contact from either party, you haven't been ghosted, because in order to be ghosted, someone has to say something and then not get a response. If I don't say anything to you and you don't say anything to me, no one is really getting ghosted. I mean, I agree that, like, obviously if you're expecting someone to text you and then they never text you, you can feel ghosted. But, like, unless you reach out to the person, how are you going to know if you've been ghosted? You know, because maybe they're thinking the same exact thing. I think when someone puts themselves out there and they don't get anything in return, you've probably been ghosted.
I mean, I think that the main issue with that is that you can't really know if the other person is expecting a reply from you, right? So how would...
Well, if I text you and we've been on a date, like, I want a reply. Like, I wouldn't text you after a date, you know, if I didn't want to keep talking to you. But, like, if no one texts anyone, no one's really ghosting anybody. That's right? Do you not think so?
Do you mean after the date? So if no one messages anyone after the date, it's not ghosting?
Yeah.
Interesting.
How many dates is it? You know, like, how many dates are we talking? You know?
Right, that's a good point. I think after one date, I don't think it's ghosting.
Yeah. When is ghosting okay? Like, obviously it's considered to be a rude, inconsiderate practice in our modern day dating society, but, like, obviously there's situations where it's fine.
I think there's a lot of those instances, actually. Like, I'm actually a proponent of ghosting in a lot of ways. So say two people have never met, like if you've never been in contact with one another outside of maybe like on a dating app, you've talked for a while and then someone just doesn't want to continue the conversation, you know, just not interested anymore.
I think if you've never met, you're not even ghosting them. You don't know them.
I still think that, like, you should be like, actually, I'm not interested, or just, you know,
that's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
you can expect, like, you don't need to say that, but it's definitely okay if you've never met. Like,
definitely.
I agree that it's not really like, it could be ghosting in some instances, but it's also like, is it though? You haven't really met, you don't know each other.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're standing you up, you know, it's like you have plans for 4 o'clock, you're getting coffee, it's 3:30, and you get no response. It's still kind of rude, but according to our definition, it's okay. It's acceptable.
I wouldn't. That's a flaw in our definition.
I actually don't think that's okay either. I've never done that, but I don't know, maybe it's 3:30 and you're like, whatever, and that's, you know, whatever.
So that is not, in my opinion, that is not okay. And the way that you would handle that is you would you would message them, be like, hey, I have something else came up. I'm really sorry, like I can't make it. Let's reschedule. And then after that, it's okay to ghost.
Okay.
Even though it's still rude, but, you know.
I digress. So,
yeah.
when you've only been on one date, I think it's okay to ghost. You're basically saying, look, I didn't feel it on that one date. What about when you're, if you're abusing them? I mean, this is a no-brainer.
Well, I think if they're abusing you, I don't think if you're abusing them.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Right. I think if you're being abused.
And also ghosting them, you're a terrible person.
you're doubly abusing them.
You are literally dumb.
Yeah, don't do that.
If they're if you are being manipulated.
Yep.
So, the longer you're with someone, the less okay ghosting becomes.
Totally. Bianca, do you have a date limit on how many dates you think you need to go on before ghosting becomes not okay? Do you think it's 2? Do you think it's 5?
After the third date and you're ghosting, it's a little rude.
Do you mean, so you go on 3 dates and then post 3 dates you have to be upfront with them? Or is it 3 dates, you're good for 3 dates, and then after the 4th date?
I think after the third date, it's like, it's gonna sting because you've made the effort to hang out with this person 3 times. So it's not even that you have to be upfront with them and be like, look, I don't want to ever see you again. I'm not interested in you. But you can at least respond. Like, you can at least acknowledge their existence. So, like, if I text you after the third date and I'm like, hey, I had a good time, like, you can at least say, I did too. Or, haha, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think complete crickets after a third date is a little harsh. It's not the worst.
Sure.
It's not the worst. I think after 4 dates, you're scum.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that 3 dates is a pretty good limit. I think that after 2 dates, you should start considering not ghosting someone. But the more dates you go on, definitely the worse ghosting looks and the less you should do it. I think
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna bring up a new idea.
Go for it, Joel.
If you're also confused on where the other party stands, so like if you guys have been dating and they just abruptly start being cold, start being short and boring in their responses, not really acknowledging anything that you're saying, I think that's an okay time to ghost because you want them to acknowledge you as a person and have a little bit more respect for you. And if they're just trying to, in your opinion, clearly get out of it, I think that's an okay time to ghost.
That's a defense mechanism.
Totally. Yeah, and going kind of off that, like, if you've been talking to someone and then suddenly they ghost you for an extended period of time, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, however long it is, and they suddenly out of nowhere, they hit you up. And in those 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long it took for them to hit you up, you were stopped being into them, or like you start focusing on other people and other things. It's completely okay to not respond back to that message, no matter how many dates you go on.
I mean, completely agree. If you stand me up for a month and then you text me out of the blue, like, I'm allowed to not respond. This kind of leads us into another thing we've been talking a lot about off pod, which is how long do you have to wait before you can officially say you've been ghosted? As you know, for me, it's 3 days. If you haven't responded to me in 3 days, you're ghosted.
That is it?
Yeah, that's it. Okay, if we've been on a date and I text you being like, hey, like, how's your day going? Which, FYI, I would never do. Like, I'd never say that. Like, I'm the girl. But, like, another topic. And it's been 3 days and you didn't respond to my question. Like, you've ghosted me. And the only exception to this in my mind is if you text me back with an explanation. So if 4 days later you go, hey, I'm so sorry, I was camping. Or, like, hey, I'm so sorry, I was sick. Or, like, XYZ, then sure, we can call it a non-ghost. But, you know.
So you're okay with calling it a ghost before it actually becomes a ghost, if that makes sense.
No, because that's just you
you're
saying
okay
my
with
definition
turning
is wrong.
So you're
There's like a fallacy in that sentence because like it is a ghost. Not, but like, yeah, because the faster you move on, if I, in my mind, am like, oh, maybe you didn't ghost me, I'm holding on to something, when in reality, Joel, I have never texted you and and had you not respond in, maybe it's taken a max of 12 hours. You've never taken 3 days to respond to me. And if you did, I'd be like, A, are you okay? B, are you mad at me? C, like, you know what I mean? I'd be like, this is weird.
Right.
Most people don't take 3 days to respond. Like, your average person.
Right. I mean, if a person wants to respond, they're going to respond.
Exactly.
No.
And if you respond in a week, like, that's actually the nicest thing you can do because you're not ghosting me, but you're telling me you're not interested because you took 5 days to respond. Unless, again, you're like, you know, cushioning it with an apology. But like, I call it a ghost after 3 days. Like, I've only been ghosted once. I was carpal tunneled. And after 3 days, I'm like, look, you have officially ghosted me. And am I allowed to text you again after that? I think so. But you did ghost me.
Yeah. I mean, in my younger days, 4 to 7, 8 years ago, I was a heavy ghoster. Ghoster.
See, I have never ghosted anyone except for maybe one person. And even if I ghost someone and you text me again, I will respond 100%.
Yeah.
So if I ghost you and it's been a week and, cause like, you know, 3 days I'm like, I ghost, it's a ghost. And then you text me again, you are clearly so down that I just will respond.
Yeah, well, my whole thing is that I don't think you really know that you're being ghosted while the ghosting is happening. You find out that you're being ghosted sometime after the ghosting is happening, or the ghosting has already happened. You know, like...
Yeah, I agree, but for me, that's 3 days later. Cause like, you're essentially being ghosted. Yeah, like, I don't know when you got my text. You could have gotten it 30 seconds after I sent it, and I'm only gonna wait around and think about it for 3 days.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a pretty, like, infinite amount. Here's an analogy. It's kind of like during the First World War, no one actually called the First World War the First World War because that would be an act of a pessimist. You know, like, they couldn't know that future world wars were going to happen. So, to me, ghosting is very similar. There's no way of you knowing they're not going to reach out in a few days or like in a week or in a month. And after a certain amount of time, you start realizing it. But until then, you don't really know.
I don't know. In my mind, you got to like tell yourself it's a ghost after 3 days. Cause like, sure, if you respond in a month, you still ghosted me. It's like he ghosted me for a month and then texted me. And I get the whole World War I thing, I guess, but it's like 3 days is about as long as it takes before you call it a ghost. It did take like, I don't know how many years after World War I that we labeled it World War I.
Probably sometime during World War II.
Probably not World War II.
Maybe.
Probably not 3 days.
Definitely not 3 days.
But this is this is not as big of a deal. So, I feel like as a ratio, they're similar.
Yeah.
Regardless, if you get ghosted, it's just important to not take it personally. You know, we've all been there. And maybe, as Joel says, you're not even being ghosted. Has it been a month?
First of all, that's true. Maybe you're not even being ghosted. Second of all, I think
you probably are. And
you might be, yeah. Yeah. But even still, I think that the reason why people ghost in general is that they just don't have enough, for lack of a better word, balls to tell you upfront how they're feeling. So you should take that as a compliment that they don't want to hurt your feelings. If they thought that you were very into them, per se, ghosting to them is like an outlet instead of having to tell you to hurt you, you know? So they're just trying to protect you. So if you look at it that way, ghosting feels a little bit better.
100%. Well, guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts on ghosting, your horror stories, your funny stories. Leave them in the comments. Email us at carpaltunneldiaries@gmail.com.
Subscribe, like our videos so that you'll know as soon as our next video is updated or uploaded. Updated or uploaded? Uploaded.
Yeah. We've been having some tech issues, but we didn't forget about you guys. All right.
Yeah, we're gonna have this video is gonna come. Well, you guys will probably know that we have a video right before this, and it's only a few days later that this one was uploaded. Normally we're gonna have about a week in between, but we had some technical difficulties with the last one, so hope you guys enjoy both.
Yeah,
and let us know.
Don't ghost us.
Commenting. Yes. Great end to this podcast.
All right.
Episode 3. All right. Adios, guys.
Bye, guys.